Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Grimm's Frightmares. This is your host, Joshua D. Maley. For the first time ever, Grimm's Frightmares and Paranormal Amino have come together to bring you 6 tales of terror. These stories were carefully chosen by the Paranormal Amino team to make your heart race and send chills down your spine. What follows is the second group of our tales, read by myself and Jess Paul. Be sure to stick around after these stories to learn how you can listen to the other 3. Now make sure those lights are out and the doors are locked. Our terrifying journey is about to begin. Deep in the desert of northern Mexico, between the states of Durango, Chihuahua, and Coahuila, is an area known as Zona del Silencio, or the Mapimi Silent Zone, for its proximity to the city of Mapimi. Legend has it that in this area, electromagnetic transmissions cannot be received. Radios don't work, compasses don't point north, and the flora and fauna have abnormal mutations. Over the years, stories of alien encounters, falling hot pebbles, and all sorts of paranormal activities have been drawing tourists and thrill seekers from around the world. If that weren't strange enough, fossils of sea animals can also be found in this area, since it's believed that it was once sea and not desert like it is now. In July 1970, the U.S. military base near Green River, Utah, fired an Athena test missile towards the White Sands Missile Range. The missile lost control and instead of landing on the intended target, continued 400 miles south and fell into the Mapimi Desert region. Immediately, a team of specialists arrived to find the fallen rocket. When the rocket was found after 3 weeks of intense search, an airstrip was built to transport the wreckage. The entire operation was very hush-hush, and the secretive nature of the operation spurred rumors among the locals. In the zone, strange magnetic anomalies of the atmosphere prevent radio transmissions in specific points and make the needles spin on magnetic compasses. The phenomena is claimed to have first been reported back in the 1930s by Francisco Sarabia, a Mexican pilot who claimed that his radio had mysteriously failed to function while flying over the zone. Others claim to have seen UFOs and objects falling from cloudless skies. My dad used to be a salesman in Mexico. He used to work for a company that produced chemical products like fertilizers and stuff like that, and he used to travel all over the map visiting companies and selling products. One time, he was traveling to Durango and he accidentally fell into the zone. My dad wasn't aware of what was said to happen there. He just said everything stopped. Car radio stopped suddenly, along with the engine, even his wristwatch. And he tried to start the engine again, but nothing. He figured he'd ran out of fuel, so he walked to a gas station nearby to buy gas. Talking to the cashier while having a snack at the store, he told them about the car dying abruptly. And the cashier pointed out that he might have just fallen into the zone. "You're going to need a tow truck, otherwise that car won't move," he said. He called someone outside and explained what happened. The man came in the store and said, "You must be from out of town. Every local knows not to get too close to the zone. Anyway, my tow truck's outside. I'll take you into the next town." Now, Dad was lucky. No other local wanted to talk about the zone, except for a trucker who my dad met the second time he visited there. He told my dad he and his brother-in-law both worked as truckers, and that his brother-in-law used to work with a man who wasn't completely there anymore, psychologically speaking. Apparently, this person was driving through the highway right by the zone, very late at night, and he had just begun his shift a few hours before. He was supposed to take some cargo somewhere, and when he got close to the zone, he had a strange encounter. Apparently, there was a strange-looking being standing right there in the middle of the highway. The trucker got out of his 16-wheeler and stood close to the thing. He appeared to be friendly, and the man claimed would communicate with him telepathically. The man, being curious, asked if it was real, if there were more of his kind and what they wanted from us humans. The being answered that he was real. that there were more like him, but they didn't show themselves to humans, and all they wanted was to coexist peacefully. The man asked the being where it lived, and it answered by pointing to the ground, where a hole with a bright light was beginning to open. The being signaled the man to join him and jumped in, but the man got in his truck and drove away. And of course, he was never the same again. People say he became insane after that encounter. I know, that story sounds very, very far-fetched, but I also know truckers tend to go through some really crazy shit while driving late at night. I can only speak for my dad, whose watch was a present from my mom and yours truly for Father's Day that same year, and it was working well when we bought it. This happened over a year ago now, but it has to be one of the scariest encounters I've ever experienced. See, in late December 2016, I was rewatching Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 2 with my new laptop. I had blankets propped up to help me sit up on my bed. Everyone else in my house was upstairs either preparing supper or watching Astro Boy. As my attention is consumed by building plot and walkers, I notice a quick, human-like movement out of the corner of my eye. Pausing the video, I turned away from the screen to witness two entities thrashing outside of my closet. Before I could fully register what was going on, a new face is thrown in front of mine. The spirit was a woman, pale skin, light, long straight hair, and ink-black eyes. Her expression seemed purely frustrated. She was reaching out for me, but kept being violently pulled back in the opposite direction. The second entity, on the other hand, appeared to be a white silhouette. They were exceedingly tall, with a slim yet muscular male figure. The silhouette had no facial expression either. Well, no face at all. I could hear nothing, but I could see everything happening a few feet away from my eyes. A couple of minutes pass before the dueling individuals vanish, leaving me curious instead of terrified.
On a typical night like any other, I enjoyed my husband's and my son's company while we watched this dumb show about a redhead living in a bunker for 15 years and then experiencing New York for the first time. As we watched, I had this discomforting sensation. Felt like someone was trying to send me a sign and watching us, but I mostly ignored it. After a few episodes, we all went to bed. I put my kid to bed, said goodnight, and joined my husband in bed and chatted for a few minutes until we both fell asleep. A few hours have passed after I felt someone cover my mouth with its leathery hand. While I was trying to scream, I couldn't quite make out the figure in front of me holding me hostage, and then saw that he had grabbed my lamp and hit my head with it, and I blacked out. Next thing I know, I was lying unconscious on the floor of my basement, with chains around my neck that were also chained to a pillar in the middle of the basement. I looked all around, but everything was pitch black. Suddenly, I heard noises coming from upstairs. Footsteps mostly, pacing back and forth, until the footsteps came to a halt. I heard a new sound, the sound of a crow, but it wasn't upstairs. I kept hearing the crow. It was in the basement. I couldn't figure out where it came from, but the silence grew. 2 spotlights appeared in front of me, shining down on my husband and my son, blindfolded with their hands tied and kneeling in front of me. Then a voice in the background said to me,
"Only one can go on with you, and one must stay with me forever. You must decide their fates."
I was speechless, not knowing what to do, trying to wrap my mind around the whole situation, only desperation keeping me sane. The voice spoke once more.
"You are bound to choose eventually."
I replied, "Why are you doing this to me?" There was silence for a few seconds, and the voice spoke.
"You only love one of them, which makes the other pointless in life. Besides, they'll be better off without you. So who will it be?"
He kept explaining more instructions, but my ears were muffled by the thoughts. Next thing I saw was two black hands appear between my husband and my son, one hand on each of their shoulders. He said,
"You don't pick now, I'll have to take them both away from you."
Panic started to grow more and more until I said with anger and hesitation, "Let my kid live, please." The light above my son turned off, and now both of the hands were on my husband, but one hand had a knife that shined bright red, and he proceeded to slit his throat slowly. But blood wasn't spilling everywhere. It was some sort of vapor or gas, white as snow, coming out of him, rising to the ceiling. It still got to me. Seeing my husband being killed in front of my eyes was the most horrifying thing I will ever experience. Next thing I know, I wake up on my bed with an awful headache and just thinking that it was all a bad dream. And then I turn to say to my husband, and I see his neck slit open, with blood dripping down his neck to the blood-covered sheets.
Well, did you survive all 3 stories? Then you might just be ready for the first part of this creepy collaboration. Head over to the Paranormal Amino YouTube page, listed below, to hear the first part of the Grimm's Frightmares Paranormal Amino team-up. And make sure you subscribe to both the Paranormal Amino channel and Grimm's Scary Tales so you don't miss a pulse-pounding second of our stories. Stay scary.